I appreciate you asking me to speak tonight, since both ASBI and JUF are important fixtures in my life. Though without JUF, I would not be Zooming with you tonight, as my parents first met in the elevator bank at the old Federation building around 46 years ago. As they say, the rest is history. As Rabbi Walkenfeld mentioned, for many years, my father, Peter Friedman, Anshe Sholom, was in charge of planning and allocations at JUF. The core mission of JUF has been ingrained in me, as well as my family, for as long as I can remember. There are many ways JUF has adapted their support during this difficult time, and we're fortunate that Anshe Sholom and Rabbi Walkenfeld have a great working relationship with one another. One of the areas JUF has increased funding for most dramatically in the early days of the COVID-19 crisis was the Rabbinic Discretionary Fund program. The thought process was that for a variety of reasons, some community members may feel more comfortable approaching the rabbi with their financial pressures rather than a social service agency professional they have never met. For a dozen years now, JUF has put dollars directly into the trusted hands of our community's pulpit rabbis. They are able to reach and assist Jews in need whom otherwise JUF may not know needed their assistance. The rabbi, the ASBI board, and the Chesed committee have been tirelessly trying to check in with members of the shul, and we really hope that everyone and their loved ones are well. If you or someone you know need emergency financial or emotional support, we are fortunate to have options. The first being Rabbi Walkenfeld, and the second, the Jewish Children Family Services, JCFS, which has a special hotline, which I can provide the number later as well. If you are in a position to volunteer, whether you're in a low risk category and looking to lend a hand in person, or you're able to help virtually, please visit the Tov pages, which can be found on the JUF website. This pandemic has both frozen Jewish life as we knew it, shuttered shuls, JCCs, preschools, day schools, large life cycle events, and Hillel, while also unleashing catastrophic financial hardships on Jewish institutions and individuals. Israel and other Jewish communities around the world are hurting too, particularly in Italy and England, and as you can imagine, in Russia and Ukraine. JUF has sent support to them as well. In many ways, we've adjusted quickly to this new but hopefully short-term reality. But for many Jewish groups and individuals, the pandemic has been financially devastating. God willing, they and our community will recover. But how much pain is endured and how quickly we bounce back and what we look like on the other side of all of this is in our collective hands. In addition to raising and allocating more money, JUF has also been cutting its own expenses. As JUF has now done for 120 years, they have moved quickly to fulfill unique, essential community roles. Those roles include research on what the short-term and emergent needs are, planning and coordination to address them in the most impactful way, and of course, marshaling the financial resources to minimize the pain and maximize the healing. To dive deeper into the specific, even dramatic actions that have been taken, I'll turn it over to JUF Executive Vice President, Jay Tcath.
Thank you, Margalit. Thank you, Rabbi Walkenfeld. This is Jay Tcath, not Lily Tcath, on whose technology expertise I'm reliant to connect on some of these Zoom meetings. As is Jewish tradition, before I begin to talk, I'd like to say something. And that is, as Margalit said and Rabbi Walkenfeld said, one of the unique features of the Federation role is research. And we are all, the colleagues on the phone and former colleagues like Paula Linda Sager, walk in the footsteps of Dr. Peter Friedman, who insisted and laid a path of research being a cornerstone of what JUF does. And so what we share, what we know, is in large part because of the insistence that Dr. Friedman had on being informed, knowing where the needs are, where they're going to be needed, and having the resources necessary to address them. In the financial realm, amidst the fiscal whiplash caused by the pandemic And with an entire quarter of our fiscal year 2020 still open, that is to say, April, May, and June, and confronting our own uncertainties of cash flow and revenue, immediately, once this COVID crisis hit, we made two significant commitments to the community. First, we reiterated our commitment to continue co-signing and guaranteeing over $200 million in loan guarantees for agencies and day schools. They were not going to have their mortgages pulled out from under them during this pandemic. Second, we would also stand by every last dollar, shekel, and ruble that we committed to for fiscal year 2020 way back in the different days of June 2019, so that each of the agencies would know that they would get what was committed to them earlier in the year. Moreover, we've also now cash advanced over $4 million to local agencies, so they would have the cash in the bank to meet their pressing needs and to meet their payroll. For one agency in particular, we secured an extra $300,000 so they could make payroll through mid-April. And then 2 weeks ago, after undertaking substantial needs assessments and inventorying a variety of financial resources, we launched the JUF COVID-19 initiative. And we've marshaled $26 million for that effort. Those dollars are coming from our endowment, the annual campaign, $10 million that have been allocated, the sources of which are yet to be found, and fundraising from our community's most generous family foundations. Those dollars will help stabilize the lives of individuals and institutions as we work through this crisis. That response parallels the magnitude of the crisis itself and the skyrocketing human needs it has unleashed. And it is a significant first step in helping our community weather this storm. A committee of volunteers who lead the community's main planning and allocation efforts has already made 3 rounds of emergency grants, and a 4th is being made this coming week. The committee will continue to meet regularly to identify emerging needs and to provide funding to address them in the following 4 priority areas: emergency financial aid, cash grants for housing, food, medical care, and other essentials for individuals and families in crisis, including assistance, as Margalit indicated, through the Rabbinic Discretionary Fund. Second area, increased food assistance, expansion of food pantries, grocery gift cards, and meal programs for people of all faiths and ethnicities, families, seniors, and other individuals in need. The third area, health and safety, enhanced staffing, trauma counseling, and personal protective equipment, PPE, for Mount Sinai Hospital, residential programs, and other caregivers serving seniors and people with disabilities. And fourth, community stability, emergency operating support and professional expertise for local Jewish human service and educational agencies, especially those operating on narrower margins to ensure future community viability. As the needs continue to grow amongst individuals and institutions, the response of JUF will grow too. The strength of the annual campaign reflects this community's commitment and generosity, and it is that annual campaign that will ensure that we come out on the other side of this vortex healthy. Another critical JUF function, as mentioned earlier, is the planning and the research. In partnership with our community's largest foundations, in mid-March, we completed the first survey of some 250 local Jewish agencies and synagogues to learn directly about the needs they and those they serve were already facing. It was those findings that have informed our first rounds of emergency allocations. Among the key findings, just a few weeks into this pandemic, were spiraling increases in requests for food assistance and emergency cash. The organizations that completed the survey also reported a combined projected net loss of $11 million just for the fourth quarter of FY20. Again, April, May, and June. And the response rate was less than 50% of the 250 groups that were surveyed. So the net deficit confronting the community just for the fourth quarter of this fiscal year is in the tens of millions of dollars. The second round survey question has now been completed and are being analyzed to inform the next round of allocations. Earlier, you heard how we are deploying volunteers in this new paradigm, creating the intake and assignment databases and linking them with where the needs are greatest was a substantial interagency and planning endeavor. We also established an interagency planning group to ensure that our network of organizations remained connected, informed, and coordinating to ensure maximum impact, minimal duplication is occurring within our social service sector. Another key role JUF is providing technical assistance to dozens of synagogues and other Jewish groups, from employment law to human resource policies, from benefit administration to fundraising, from financial modeling to marketing, and from technology to facility security and sanitation. We're leveraging our know-how across the Chicago Jewish organizational ecosystem. And we are assisting connecting constituents to their elected officials and providing guidance to over 20 Jewish groups who applied for various governmental programs, including, of course, the PPP stimulus. Unfortunately, we have also been dealing with the spike in anti-Semitism, internet conspiracy theories about how Jews created or are profiting from the coronavirus, as well as troubling images at Chicago and Springfield rallies equating our Jewish governor to Hitler and our state's restrictions to Nazism. In sum, together as a community, as we battle the world's oldest disease of anti-Semitism, we are also battling this new coronavirus disease. Be assured that also as a community, as thousands more are being fed, thousands more are being provided emergency cash for rent and utilities, medications and other necessities, and thousands more are being provided medical care. There's a lot more to tell and a lot more still in the works. But let me stop here and entertain your questions and suggestions on how together we can serve our community even better. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If people have questions or comments, I don't want to invite all 43 of you to just unmute yourselves and have at it, but maybe you can start by posting a question in the chat box and then I can call on you. So it's a little bit more organized. That would probably be a little more helpful. If there's a little bit of quiet, you want to try unmuting and asking verbally, we can go for that. Okay. Okay, I don't see anyone with questions. I guess I'd like to, so I'll keep Matt, you know, if you think of something, please type it out, or you can even ask it. I just like to, what are the I guess what are the mechanisms for like how can we for like continuing to evaluate the community, you know, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, letting us know what you're finding and then responding to future developments as things play out over the coming months, right? We may.
So our research department will continue sending out those surveys to institutions. I think there's 250 that receive them, and this second round received a significantly higher percentage of responses than the first one. So we can hope we'll continue to get a better sense of what the community organizations are confronting, including, of course, the synagogues, as well as what they're hearing from their constituents. And we're going to continue to pace the allocation of those $26 million I made reference to, because the needs today may be addressed one way or another. We don't know what the next PPP or COVID relief from Congress or Springfield may look like. And if government is going to plug a hole 2 weeks down the road, and we need to be thinking 4 weeks down the road, what we may then have to pick up for. So we're going to continue getting the money out the door, to be sure, but also we also realize we're in a marathon and not a sprint. We are plugging holes in the dike, but we know other holes are going to emerge in the months to come. And many of us fear that organizationally and individually, from this pandemic economic impact, the worst is yet to come. We already have seen the unemployment numbers skyrocket, and that's at a time when there were billions of dollars invested in PPP, assuring employers would keep their staff at least through the end of June. So beginning in July, minus another PPP program between now and then, we're going to see even further skyrocketing of unemployment and all of the economic dislocations that brings with it. We have a new weekly email called Connected and Together. We have 80,000 subscribers to it. Anyone on this Zoom call should be a recipient. If not, we'll be happy to add it to you. And that's one of the main ways that we're keeping the community apprised, not just of the daunting and sobering news, but also the vibrant programming and other messages that are coming through these days as well. And we have a dedicated webpage at juf.org on our COVID-19 response and other communal resources.
Thank you. Somebody Becca asks, is there any thought of providing support for people in the community who rely on Jewish events and shul for social contact? Is that a concern that's reached your desk, your federation's?
It's reached the desk in a number of ways. First and foremost, the sense of social isolation, which many people are experiencing, both personally and professionally. And I think the speed with which the community and synagogues in particular adapted to the Zoom technology has minimized that sense of isolation, but it's still a virtual community and not what we want to accept ever as a new norm. We're anxious to get back together. For those with severe cases of social isolation, please do contact that JCFS hotline. That number is 855-ASK-JCFS.
Thank you for both of those answers. As I'm curious, as you do these calls, you and your colleagues with other shul communities, what have you been able to glean from the calls themselves, the questions on people's minds? What are there recurring questions that you receive? What do you see in people's little boxes? What are you learning?
Well, from other shows, the questions are mostly, how come Anshe Sholom is so cool and everyone's joining there?
Good answer.
Actually, the question which has come up in every session like this that I participated in, and I was remiss because I left it out of the laundry list of the $26 million sources of revenue. The question was, are you going to go into your endowment to help with some of these needs? So that's I think in my sessions have been the first question asked. It wasn't asked here, so I'll answer it anyways, because I'm a Jewish speaker. And the answer is yes. We have gone into the endowment to help fund part of that $26 million, a couple of different places within the endowment. But the larger issue that we want to make sure the community understands, and it's getting a lot of attention because the media is reporting on the very large university endowments that still got PPP, on the for-profit companies that got PPP, and shouldn't JUF have gone into the endowment, and why should it need PPP, or why does it need to do extra fundraising in these times? And in terms of the endowment, what folks should understand is that ours, I don't know how similar we are to other nonprofits, but over 90% of the endowment is designated for specific and limited purposes. So we have scholarships, I'm going to make this up, but to illustrate the point, that only left-handed Glenview high school alum who study math at University of Illinois are going to qualify for this scholarship, or a scholarship to go to this camp or to that day school. So it's a very restricted endowment, and the unrestricted part, the first dollars taken out every year go towards the purposes of the annual campaign, and we've gone into the corpus in this instance as well to help with the COVID-19 crisis. So that's the answer to the question not asked.
Great, thank you, thank you. Any other questions from people listening? Oh, somebody. This time of year, JUF usually sponsors quite a few fundraising dinners for various groups. What are you doing this year instead? I guess maybe these calls, but otherwise, what are you doing instead?
So, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're confronting our own challenges as well. Just as we're compelled with getting money out the door, this would be a high revenue period for us. You're right, the trade dinners are held around this time. A lot of synagogue annual events are held this time. And the country club, the 7 Jewish country clubs who hold their JUF fundraisers, that's not going to happen this year on June 15th. So we're doing new strategies. We haven't used these Zoom sessions for synagogues as explicit fundraisers. We're going back to old school telethons a lot more, and we're going to go back to snail mail more and just rely upon the old school effort. But we also know historically the easiest way to get someone to make a pledge, never mind the actual check writing, is to attend an event. That when one attends the event, there's a very high rate of making a pledge, and that's one less person we have to track down via phone calls, and many folks view it as harassment during the end of the calendar year. So we are going to start already with our hands tied behind our back with thousands of individuals who typically attend a JUF fundraising event in the spring, who we have to reach out to in another way.
Thank you. I'll try to make sure that I'm paid up to save you at least the phone call. Okay, and I really, in a sense, appreciation for the burden that you've taken on as an organization on behalf of our entire community. It's certainly a priority for me in my Tcath allocation this year, and as it's been for many years, but with a special urgency this year. Any other questions you can write out or ask? Oh, Sandi Kaplan, you want to say something? Yes?
Yes, please, if you don't mind.
Of course not.
I just want to mention that.
Please introduce yourself to those who don't know you from.
Okay, I am Sandi Kaplan, and I work, my job is Director of Congregations, so we're very involved in those events that you have at your synagogue that aren't happening this year, for which we're very sad because we don't get to see all of you perhaps in person. But I did want to mention, there was this call, for example, the question from Becca. There are many connections that that JUF is reaching out to through Women's Division. There are all kinds of things going on Zoom calls. There are through a number of programs through the family connections. They're doing a few things through our Facebook page. There are also YLD connections. There's all kinds of programming going on, just as your synagogue has reached out and had Zoom programming. But if anybody has any questions about any of those, first of all, you can go on our webpage, and some of those are listed. But please feel free to email me and I'll get you whatever information you'd like. It's Sandikaplan@juf.org. But please look at our YLD page. Please look at the Women's Division page. Please look for any of these. There are all kinds of programs going on, and hopefully that will help you just a little. And chances are, as Jay said, you may be hearing from us in the future. Please answer your phone when we call. We would love to talk to you, and please know we will be reaching out somewhere. And we thank you in advance.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Any other questions?
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yes, I don't see any waving faces. I don't see any more questions in the comments. Okay. Going once, twice. All right. Thank you all again. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Sandy. And also Paula. Thank you. Margalit, thank you. Hello, Asher. Hi. Thanks for joining the call too. Wonderful to see again your names and faces on the Zoom call. Everyone from the shul. It's, I miss you a lot. And hi, Avital. Good to see you. Thanks. She's very proud of your mother, okay? And looking forward to the chance we can meet in future on other online events and in future as well in person, which will be really, really special. Yes, this recording started after I think after I was done speaking. But it will be eventually on the shul's YouTube channel, and Federation will make it available as well. So if you can tell your friends who missed that they can listen as well. Okay. So have a good night, everyone, and thank you so much, and hope to be in touch in all sorts of ways. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.